All right. So it looks pretty crazy when you just throw it up in front of somebody who's never. But we can thank Kool-Aid for doing such a fantastic job, and Jay, you helped out too on this, putting this bad boy together. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So you got your user here, right? So your user comes to our DApp, and that's what we got open right now. And you want to mint and get Pulsar. So what you can do is you could turn in your Titan-X plus an Ethereum protocol fee in order to mint your Pulsar. So right now, since we had to redeploy, you can also, there's a little drop-down box where you could select your Pulsar V0 in the event that you were around for those 5 hours that I had it open to where you could mint Pulsar in the first place. And if you did, you can mint you could take your V0 and you can mint the new Pulsar with zero protocol fee, just 1-for-1. And what happens when you do that is 100% of that Pulsar V0 just gets burnt out of existence live right within that same transaction. You can see it on Etherscan, and then it mints you the new Pulsar. In this scenario where you have your Titan-X, so say you've got $1,000 worth of Titan-X and you want to mint Pulsar, well, you're going to have to pay $1,000 worth of Ethereum because the protocol fee is dynamic, which is one thing that we practiced on. So first we did a static, call on Perma-Bull when you minted that, and a static call on Icosa burn protocol when you minted that, just different amounts. But then we transitioned into doing what I didn't think was possible, but we figured out a way to make it dynamic so that whatever the value of the token is that you're turning in, you have to pay equal value in a protocol fee. And that becomes very important, and you'll see why that becomes important later on here. So essentially, you get your Pulsar at that moment in time. So all you got to do is approve the spend, and then you pay for the mint, which is really very gas effective. It's cost effective. Right now with the gas fees where it's at, the GUI where it's at, you're probably looking at spending $2, maybe $3 worth of GUI to mint these tokens. So very cheap. So now you got your Pulsar, and as far as you're concerned, you're done. You've got your Pulsar. You got what you wanted, and you can do whatever you want with it. But on the back end, that just starts kicking up the gears, right? That just gets things moving along. So the first thing that happens is when you mint that, the Ethereum that you paid goes into the Pulsar protocol smart contract, right? That nobody can extract, and your Titan-X goes in there as well. However, when you bring in your Titan-X during this process, it takes 50% of your Titan-X that you're bringing in, and it burns it. Well, to be exact, now that we adjusted it a little bit, it's 42%. So 42% is burnt out of existence, and we also credit you for the burn, and that credit is credited via the Titan-X interface. So now the Titan-X smart contract knows that when you minted Pulsar, you also burnt 42% of your Titan-X. And if you go back and, if you're not familiar with the white paper with Titan-X, you can go back and look. What that does for you is that adds up. It's like a credit. So that if you want to go create miners down the road, you get a bonus amount of Titan-X at the end of your miners based on how much you burnt. Right?
So you didn't keep that? You gave that back to the users?
Absolutely. 100% of that.
Right on.
So the user gets 100% of the credit for burning that Titan-X that they sent into the protocol. So that's awesome. And then, okay, wait, what about the other 8%? So the other 8%, you'll see down here towards the bottom there is 8% is sent to the 8% of what would have been burnt, right? This is just a math thing. So 4, 8, right? So 8% of what would have been burnt is being sent to the DragonX vault. So I was in contact with Eric from DragonX, and his only suggestion was that we update your front end. So it's just like this low level call we got to do in the contract so that they know that we deposited it, and their front end will respond to it. So we're pinging them. We're depositing into their vault for them. We're not asking for anything from them. We're doing this as just a tip of the hat. Like, you built on Titan-X first. You did a great job. We love your token. There's a lot of us who did quite well in DragonX and are still doing quite well in DragonX, right? So it's a tip of the hat, man. We want to win together. So we threw 8% into there, and then the other 8%, my dude from Helios, man. That guy, he's been around for all the Giff projects and the Perma-Giff projects. He was the first one in the rooms asking me the real hard questions and such. So love that dude. Talked to him today a little bit. So we're throwing 8% to his smart contract on Helios, which is going to be used within their ecosystem. So
Nice.
So badass, right? So if you take the total amount of Titan X that was going to be burned, 84% of it actually gets burned. And then 8% goes to Dragon X and the other 8% goes to Helios. All right, we're done there. So what about the other 50% of the Titan X? Well, the other 50% sits in the smart contract. So that's sitting in the smart contract of Pulsar. All right, cool. What else happens? Well, the amount of Pulsar that the user minted, a duplicate amount of that Pulsar is also minted and also sits in that smart contract right alongside that Titan X. And then there is a publicly callable function on our smart contract. Anybody here can call it from Etherscan. It's called distribute. And there's also another one called the bridge to PulseChain. This is actually the more relevant one. So anybody can call this, and if this is payable and it asks you to put a number in there, you just put in 0. It's irrelevant to the story of this, but you don't have to pay any fee with this. You just pay the gas. What that does is that sends that Titan X and that Pulsar to the PulseChain OmniBridge interface on the back end. So it initiates the bridging process. So again, anybody can call this. Nobody's in charge of this. This is all decentralized, and it's automated once you run the transaction. So that starts the bridging process to go to PulseChain. So that, as we know, bridging a PulseChain takes 20 minutes to an hour, depending on the traffic. That cost is a little bit more expensive. Okay, so when you go to run this transaction on Etherscan, or it will be on our front end here shortly, or in the new future, that it costs anywhere from like $10 to $30, even more if Ethereum gas fees are higher. So it's the same as if your experience of bridging to PulseChain, right? It's not cheap to initiate that. So anyways, after let's say an hour goes by, you could go to PulseChain and go ahead and click in our Pulsar Pathway smart contract, right? You see that here. And within that contract, you're already going to notice, you can pull it up right now. You're already going to notice a couple of things. So the Titan X and the Pulsar that got bridged is accumulating in this smart contract. Again, nobody owns it. You can't withdraw these funds. It just accumulates. And then there's one more function that can be called on the Pulsar Pathway contract, which is deposit PulseX liquidity. And what that does is it takes as much as it can, right? Because ratios change, but it takes as much as is sitting in that smart contract and it deposits into the PulseX V2 liquidity pool of Titan X and Pulsar. And this can only be built up, and then it issues those LP tokens right back to that same smart contract where it can never be withdrawn. It just sits in that smart contract forever. All right. So that's our dev on the PulseChain side. Was that clear? Is there any questions so far?
Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal clear.
Okay. So then let's go back up over to here. Ethereum. Where'd the ETH go? Where'd the ETH go? All right. So the Ethereum, so the other function I told you about, the distribute function, that also sits within the Pulsar smart contract. So you can also run this from the Etherscan. This is very cheap. It's like $1, $2, $3, depending on gas fees. And what this does is it distributes the ETH and it distributes the Titan X rebate. So this would be interesting. I'm not sure exactly how often this is used, but there's another feature in Titan X that when you burn Titan X, you get what's called a rebate. So what that means is whatever you burn, the Titan X smart contract will mint brand new Titan X, 8% of what you burn, and give it to the burner. What we're doing with that is we're sending that to our buy and burn. So that accumulates in the Pulsar smart contract as people mint, because when they mint, they're burning Titan X, right? So that rebate comes through and it gives it to the Pulsar contract. When you hit distribute, it will distribute all the ETH that's currently in the contract from the protocol fee along with the Titan X, and it sends it to the buy and burn. When it gets to the buy and burn, then that's what allows the Ethereum to be used to buy Pulsar and burn it, and all the accumulated Titan X, it will also buy Pulsar with the Titan X and burn it. And if anybody sends any Pulsar to that buy and burn address, it'll automatically burn that too. I don't know why that's important, but the smart contract checks for any Pulsar in there, and it'll just burn it if it finds any.
Nice. But it burns it for a reason. That's good. It doesn't just go into some abyss, you know? It actually, when somebody screws up, there's some functionality to it.
or a backdoor wallet. So essentially, it's a nice little flywheel. Nice little perpetual motion that's being created.
Yes.
And what we're really creating here is the infrastructure. This is like what we needed. We needed this solid, well thought out, gear-like system to then build upon, right? So this is basically how it's going to look. But there's a lot of like nifty stuff. Like if you go and you end up minting some Pulsar, I encourage you to go look at that transaction and see what's happening. And then if you run the distribute function, go look at that transaction and see what's happening. It's all really cool.
It's easy to follow along. Like everything's properly tagged. All the addresses are tagged. So you're not like getting super deep into dev speak at all. It's pretty clear and easy to see, but there's a lot going on. It's impressive, actually.
Very.
Yeah, congratulations. In real time, I'm sitting here thinking about, that the Ethereum that's sitting there with, Titan X and that ability to buy and burn. And then I'm also thinking about whether it happens or not, Sack Daddy and that Ethereum. This protocol is going to be a huge spark plug for PulseChain. I mean, you guys are creating a pillar, and there's so many pillars being built within the PulseChain ecosystem, but this is going to be something that really ignites. You got these power, like I said, these two boom towns creating, but you have that buy and burn happening on Titan X. You have Ethereum price going up. Sack Daddy, who knows, may or may not do what he does. The point being is, it's exciting stuff. It's going to be good for all ships in the bay for what you guys are doing. You know what I mean?
Oh, should probably talk arbitrage.
Yeah, there you go.
Kind of forgot about that too. Should probably talk about that.
Arbitrage. Yeah, arbitrage is pretty cool, man. We've had a lot of fun with arbitrage in the Giff ecosystem over the last, 8 months or so. So the way Pulsar currently stands is there is a ceiling to it, right? A ceiling, and it's a ratio. It's not a dollar value. This could go as high as you want in dollar terms, but there is a ratio that controls it, and that's Titan X. If at any time I can mint Pulsar in real time, so this isn't like mining, right? Like, so a lot of things in the Titan X ecosystem is all about mining, which means it's basically what we're doing, but there's a delayed release. It's the same thing. So with some added mechanics to it, of course. I'm not trying to dumb it down. But the point is that if you're able to receive the tokens immediately, then that means that if what you put in is less value than what you get out, then that difference you can immediately profit on. That's called the arbitrage, right? So currently speaking, if you mint Pulsar and the value that you got out is more than the value you put in, right? Like I said, that's where the arbitrage happens. So the ceiling price is 8-to-1. And the reason it's 8-to-1 is because you can mint 1 Pulsar per 4 Titan X. Okay, so that sounds like 4-to-1. Well, hold on. The protocol fee is the equal value of that 4-to-1. So now we're at 8-to-1, right? So the 8-to-1. So if you ever look at the Pulsar price chart, the best price chart to really look at is the Titan X versus Pulsar price chart, which, by the way, we are purely tied in LP to Titan X. So 100% of our pool is with Titan X. So essentially, you look at that, you change the price chart to price in Titan X, and you'll see right now we're at like 7 Titan X per Pulsar. So that's underneath the ceiling. So there's no opportunity for arbitrage at this exact moment. But what we've always seen that happens is there's mechanisms that could increase the buying pressure of Pulsar. One is the most obvious, is people are like, oh, I want a piece of that, so I'm going to buy some. I'm gonna buy some, put it in my portfolio. That's part of my portfolio now, right? The other part is, you know, we got the buy and burn, and it's not just our protocol, but as things get built on Pulsar or other communities or other builders build on Pulsar, then that's going to add more buying pressure. So you might be running into a scenario where it's a non-human, you know, player that is buying up the price of Pulsar and pushing it above the ceiling price, which allows anybody who is either fast enough or has written a bot to do it that can immediately profit from the difference. But here's the thing. Every time they profit from it, what are you doing? You're burning Titan X, you're minting Pulsar, you're adding ETH to the buy and burn, and you're bridging value to PulseChain. You're doing a whole lot of flywheel stuff every time there's a little bit of arbitrage happening.
We're on a surge.